a story comes to mind about these two little boys. They were the best of friends and they were playing on the ice. And one of the ice broke and his friend fell through. So he tried to break the ice with his hand to pull him out, but he couldn't do it. So he looked around and he saw a tree. And he ran to that tree and he broke off a branch and came back and beat the ice and beat it, but the branch wasn't strong enough. Then he went back to the tree and pulled another branch off and he beat the ice and he beat the ice and the ice finally broke and he was able to pull his friend up. When the paramedics arrived, they were asking each other, they said, how in the world did he do that? How did he break that branch? Such a little boy. And there was an old man standing around. Excuse me. And he walked up to the paramedics and he said, you want to know how he did it? I can tell you how he did it. And the paramedics asked, why? How? He said, because there was no one here to tell him he couldn't. I believe that belief is the most important thing when it comes to whatever your goals and desires are. And there are always going to be naysayers. And when you no longer have belief in yourself, the game is over. I had a young lady friend and she had a little boy who had never seen his father. He was about 6 years old and he needed a mentor. So I said, well, I can mentor him. And I remember the day he arrived. He came, he had his little fire engine hat. He was proud, and I introduced myself to him. And we created a bond within that time. And I mentored him for a little less than a year. The last time I saw him was around. He came over around Thanksgiving with his mother, and he was sitting next to me, and he told me he said, big brother, I wish you was my father. I said, oh man, that's all right, that's sweet, make me bring tears to my eyes. And I told him, I said, you know what, Gerard, you can you're going to meet your father, you're going to see your father. I said, all you have to do is believe that you're going to see him, and you will see him, you'll meet him, he'll come back into your life. And I told him, I said, but once he comes into your life, I know that my job is done and I won't see you anymore. And he said, oh no, big brother, I'm gonna always stay in touch with you. I mean, but I knew better. So Christmas came around and it was snowing and I was home just relaxing, listening to a little Christmas music. And my phone rang. And I answered, I said, hello. And he said, big brother, big brother. He was so excited. And I said, take your time. It's all right. What is it that you want to tell me? And he said, I met my father. My mother and I, we were in a restaurant, and my father walked in the restaurant. And I met my father, just like you told me. I was believing that I was going to meet him, and I met him. I said, see the power of belief? Children have a clean slate. They don't have all these negative experiences and positive experiences to lessen their belief. Secondly, I had a friend, and he and I years ago, it was my best friend. We used to box, and he was very talented. And what had happened was they started to, when I say they, I mean the trainers, they started taking him to other gyms and they had him sparring with professional fighters. That's how advanced he was. But he shouldn't have been doing that because he needed to grow. He became very discouraged as a result of sparring with those professional fighters, and they weren't paying him either, to say the least. He and I went out to dinner one evening. He called me. He said, Anthony, I want to go out to dinner, and there's some things that I want to discuss with you. So we went out to dinner, excuse me, and he was looking at me and he said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I said, do what? He said, "Box, I don't feel as though that I can make it." And I saw in his eyes and the vibes that I got from him that it was over. Throughout all the years that I continued to encourage him to press on, because surely he was headed to be a champ, a welterweight champ. I knew at that point that he had actually stopped believing in himself. And without him believing in himself, I knew the game was over. Thirdly, remember the Wiz? Remember the Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow? And what about Dorothy? In the end, we found that they all had what they were looking for, what they were looking for the Wiz to give them. The Scarecrow needed a brain, but he already had a brain, not figuratively speaking. The Lion needed courage, but he demonstrated courage all through his journey to go and see the Wiz. And in the end, we found that when they were looking for things, they were trying to get things that they already had within them. They didn't believe that they had it. Once they started believing that they had these things, they were able to press forward. And Dorothy, once she believed that she could go home, she could go home. But she could always go home. The power was within her. So, in conclusion, there are always going to be naysayers. Like my little brother, he believed that he was going to see his father. He believed it, and he didn't look out from the outside to get encouragement from anyone but other than me. I planted the seed, and that was it. He took off, he believed it. My best friend, he demonstrated that once you stop believing, that the game is over. So, in conclusion, I just want to say that you have to believe in yourself. If you don't have any belief in what your goals and desires are, then you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it until you believe in yourself and stop looking on the outside stop looking toward outside sources for encouragement, because you are your best friend or you're your worst enemy. Take care and believe in yourself.